new school year has just begun. Jana Kendall, a third grader at South Central Elementary School, has had difficulty in school for a number of years. School staff have decided to refer her for possible special education services. Over the summer, Jana became a ward of the state, so before proceeding with the referral, Jana needs a surrogate parent. Paula Dimmert received surrogate parent training last April. She is delighted to read the letter appointing her as Jana Kendall's surrogate parent. No conflict of interest exists, so she'll be able to act on Jana's behalf in educational issues. Paula contacts the school district, accepts the appointment, and begins activities related to her role. Paula will be asked to give permission to evaluate Jana. She will gather information necessary for making an informed decision about doing so. If granting permission is in Jana's best interest, Paula's commitment as a surrogate will begin to unfold. Like Paula, you have expressed a willingness to share your time with a student in need of a surrogate parent. After participating in training today, you too will be prepared to answer yes when your letter arrives in the mail. In 1975, Congress enacted a law requiring school districts to provide educational opportunities to all children, including children who experience disabilities. This law is currently known as IDEA 97, referring to the name of the law, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and the most recent amendment in 1997. Parents offer information and insight invaluable to the program planning process. When the parent of a child with a disability cannot be identified or located, or the child is in state custody, or a parent requests a district to appoint a surrogate parent for the child, a surrogate parent must be appointed to act as an advocate for the child and his or her education. Before being appointed, qualified individuals willing to serve as surrogate parents must receive proper training from the school district. This videotape has been produced to meet that requirement. The information presented in this training video has been divided into the following segments: qualifications of a surrogate parent, the role of a surrogate parent, state and federal requirements for special education, and rights and responsibilities of parents in the special education decision-making process. Qualifications of a surrogate parent. School district staff will periodically seek volunteers willing to serve as surrogate parents. District personnel will determine if each volunteer is qualified to be a surrogate parent. Qualifications include assurance that each volunteer has or is willing to acquire knowledge about the special education needs of the student so that adequate educational representation can be provided. Assurance that each volunteer is willing to commit the time and energy necessary to effectively present and advance the best interest of the child in educational matters, including special education and the general curriculum. Facts that show that each volunteer is not an employee of a public or private agency involved in the care or education of the child. Facts that show that each volunteer does not have any interests which will conflict with the child's interests in the area of special education. And assurance that each volunteer is willing to participate in training to become a surrogate parent. The role of a surrogate parent. A surrogate parent performs the parent's role in all matters relating to identification, educational evaluation, re-evaluation placement, and the provision of a free, appropriate public education, also known as FAPE, to the child. During appointment, a surrogate parent is expected to exercise all of the rights, responsibilities, and authorities of a parent in the educational process. If you are asked to serve as a surrogate parent, you must first determine if you meet the requirements of impartiality. No employee of the agency or school district serving the child can act as a surrogate parent. Such employment is viewed as a conflict of interest on the part of the employee, since it could require serving the potentially conflicting interests of both the agency and the child. In fact, any person who holds a job or position that might restrict his or her ability to act as the child's advocate would be considered to have a conflict of interest. If you find that you are able to act objectively, and you are able to devote the time necessary to act as a surrogate parent, you're ready to begin the process. The school district will ensure that the rights of a child are protected if no parent can be identified, the public agency after reasonable efforts cannot discover the whereabouts of a parent, or the child is a ward of the state under the laws of that state. The term parent means a natural or adoptive parent, a guardian, but not the state if the child is a ward of the state, a person acting in the place of a parent, such as a grandparent or step-parent with whom the child lives, or a person who is legally responsible for the child's welfare, or a surrogate parent. When it's determined that a child needs a surrogate parent, care will be taken in that appointment. If a child is in state custody, natural parents may be trained and selected as the surrogate parent. Should the natural parent not be able to fulfill the role, the district will make another selection. When matching a child with a surrogate parent, consideration will be given to cultural and religious similarities, language compatibility, and age preference of the child or the surrogate parent. Preference will be given to a member of the child's immediate or extended family or a family friend. Foster parents may be appointed to act as a surrogate parent if the natural parent's authority to make educational decisions on the child's behalf has been extinguished under state law, and the foster parent has an ongoing, long-term parental relationship, usually 2 years or more, with the child, and other qualifications are met. Once appointed in writing by the local school district as a surrogate parent for a specific child, you can expect to be informed of the educational needs of the pupil you will represent. As the surrogate parent, you are entitled to all information necessary to make informed decisions on behalf of the child, including access to pertinent records. Following initial training, ongoing consultation should be available on an as-needed basis from the special education director. Additionally, the district will have a written surrogate parent plan. Ask to see it and review it thoroughly. Printed materials are included with this videotape to assist you in familiarizing yourself with the child and related educational needs. Unless you request otherwise, you will continue to serve as surrogate parent for the period of time agreed upon in writing when you were appointed. Exceptions would occur if the district determines that the natural or adoptive parent or guardian has been located, or if you, the surrogate parent, no longer meet the standards to qualify, and termination is necessary to protect the best interest of the child. If this occurs, it will be confirmed in writing for you by the school district. Should you decide that you can no longer serve as the child's surrogate parent, send written notice to the school district. The district will respond by sending you a Notice of End of Appointment form, indicating that your appointment has been terminated as requested. As surrogate parent, you have no responsibility for caring for or supporting a child financially, unless you are also the natural or foster parent. Federal and state requirements. IDEA 97, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act 1997, provides the following rights. 1. A free, appropriate public education for all children and youth with disabilities requiring special education and related services, including children with disabilities who have been suspended or expelled from school. FAPE must also be provided, with some limitations, to students under age 22 in adult correctional facilities. 2. Procedures for evaluation and determination of eligibility. 3. Individualized education programs, often referred to as IEPs. 4. Parental participation in planning and decision-making. 5. Least restrictive environment, to the maximum extent appropriate, which means education with children who are not disabled. And 6. Due process procedures for parents and children. Free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. Free means without charge to the parent. Appropriate means provided in conformity with a developed individualized education program. Public means at public expense, under public supervision and direction. Education means preschool through secondary education for students ages 3 through 21, including children with disabilities who have been suspended or expelled from school, which meets the standards, regulations, and policies issued by the Department of Education and Early Development. The services and placement needed by each child with a disability to receive free and appropriate public education must be based on the child's unique needs and not on the child's disability. Evaluation, reevaluation, and eligibility. A child experiencing difficulty will be referred for an evaluation. Before an evaluation begins, the parent must give signed consent for the evaluation to take place. State-mandated procedures assure that testing must be comprehensive and non-discriminatory. Materials used must be valid, unbiased with regard to race, gender, culture, or socioeconomic status, and administered in the child's primary language or mode of communication. A variety of assessment tools and strategies must be used to gather functional and developmental information about the child. Information provided by the parent is to be included. The evaluation must identify all of the child's special education and related services needs. The eligibility decision must be made by the IEP team, including the parent. The team must consider all information gathered during the evaluation, including recommendations for eligibility by all examiners. Discussion should include all recommendations. However, the final eligibility decision rests with the team. Every 3 years, the IEP team must meet to determine if the child continues to be eligible for special education. The team, including the parent, will decide if reevaluation is necessary. Individualized Education Program, or IEP. Once determined eligible for special education, an individualized education program must be developed for the child. The program is most often referred to as an IEP. Many steps are involved in the development of the IEP. The IEP is a written statement for a child with a disability that clearly states what kind and amount of services the child will receive, who will provide the services, and where the services will be provided. Before the IEP can be implemented, the district must obtain signed permission to place the child in a special education program. After the initial development of the IEP, it must be reviewed annually to reflect progress toward meeting the goals and objectives of the IEP and to include new goals and objectives for the upcoming year. Parental involvement. The laws provide for parental notice and involvement in planning and decision-making. Parents must be afforded the opportunity to participate in IEP meetings. The district must notify parents of the meeting early enough to ensure that they will have an opportunity to attend, and schedule the meeting at a mutually agreed-on time and place. If a parent is unable to attend, A telephone conference call can be arranged. After an IEP is written and agreed upon, parents must be provided with a copy and a prior written notice. Least restrictive environment. After the IEP is written, the IEP team must decide where the program is to be delivered. It is important the child be with their typical peers as much as possible. Supports and services should be provided in the regular classroom as much as possible. The child should be removed from the regular classroom only when it is not possible to meet their educational needs in the classroom. The school must provide a continuum of placements to meet the needs of children with disabilities. The continuum must include the following educational placements: instruction in regular classes, special classes, special schools, home instruction, and instruction in hospitals and institutions. Services such as a resource room or itinerant instruction must be available in conjunction with regular class placement. Due process safeguards. Due process safeguards are a set of procedures that guarantee fairness in educational decision-making. They include the opportunity to examine records and participate in meetings with respect to the identification, evaluation, and educational placement of the child, the right to an independent educational evaluation, the right to the appointment of a surrogate parent, the right to receive notice in native language before any action is taken regarding the child, and the right to disagree and participate in mediation, request a complaint investigation from the Department of Education and Early Development, and/or have a hearing before an impartial hearing officer. Rights and responsibilities. Parents' rights, detailed in state and federal laws, are the rights also afforded you as a surrogate parent. It is your responsibility as a surrogate parent to exercise the rights on behalf of your assigned child. As a surrogate parent, you might first come into contact with the school when the child is referred for an evaluation. The child may have been having difficulty in class, and after trying different methods of instruction, the classroom teacher has referred the child for an evaluation. You would be asked to sign a form giving the district permission to evaluate the child. The school is required to tell you why they wish to evaluate and what kinds of tests they would like to use. Your task is to determine whether or not to give the permission. The child cannot be evaluated without your permission. At that time, as well as others, you would most likely examine records before giving consent for testing. Records to be reviewed could include tests performed in years past, report cards, confidential reports, and health records. You may also request conferences with the child's teacher or other individuals who know the child. If the group, usually the IEP team, including the parent, has determined that the child is eligible for special education, you will be asked to participate in the development of the IEP. Districts are required by state and federal law to develop an IEP for each child with a disability found to be in need of special education. The IEP is written by a team of people from the school or agencies involved, including the child's parents, or in this case, you, the surrogate parent. This meeting is held so that a program can be designed to meet the child's unique needs. You, as a member of the IEP team, must help determine what the annual goals and short-term objectives should be for the child. You will help determine what special services may be required and what placement or setting is required for them to be achieved. Beginning with the school year during which the child reaches age 14, the child must also be invited to the IEP meeting. The child will participate in the development of the IEP, which now includes secondary transition. The IEP will address the identification of and planning for educational courses that the child will be taking in each grade after turning 14 years old. Beginning with the school year during which the child reaches age 16, the IEP team must consider needed transition services in the following areas: instruction, related services, community experiences, employment, and post-school adult living objectives. If appropriate, the statement must also address daily living skills and a functional vocational evaluation. Secondary transition activities address the needs of the child related to the transition from school to adult living. You should be an active participant in the decision-making process. Insist that terms be defined and that professional jargon be explained. During an IEP meeting, you will be asked to sign the IEP to acknowledge your presence at the meeting in which the IEP was developed. When the very first IEP is complete, you will be asked to sign permission for initial placement in special education. The IEP must be revised and updated at least once a year. As long as you are the child's surrogate parent, you will be asked to participate in IEP meetings. If at any point in the process you disagree with the school district, there are procedures in place for you to voice your disagreement. As the surrogate parent of the child, you may request that the district participate in mediation to resolve the disagreement. Mediation provides the opportunity for all parties to present their points of view and stimulates mutual problem-solving efforts. Positive relationships between parents and the school are promoted. Mediation helps parents and school staff focus on what they have in common, the child, rather than on the issues that divide them. The special education mediation process is voluntary and confidential. IDEA 97 encourages the use of mediation in special education disputes. If the disagreement cannot be resolved through the normal give and take of meetings and discussions or mediation, you may request a complaint investigation by the Department of Education and Early Development. In this request, you would simply describe the nature of the disagreement as you understand it and sign the letter. The letter will be reviewed by the Department of Education and Early Development, and you will be contacted to help clarify the issues. Information will then be gathered from the district, and finally, a decision and possible solution to the disagreement will be presented. At any time, you have the right to request an impartial due process hearing. Unresolved issues related to identification, evaluation, placement, and provision of a free, appropriate education may be brought to hearing. When first soliciting your participation with the child, school districts are required to provide you with information regarding your due process rights, including your right to a due process hearing. Procedures for requesting a hearing should be included in the information provided by the district. As a surrogate parent, you will not be able to, nor are you expected to replace the child's parents in all aspects of life. If you remain objective and always keep the child's best educational interests in mind, you should find your experiences as a surrogate parent both stimulating and rewarding.